talk about tonight, but I'll do my best. So, start with some goals. I really want to encourage you all, if you haven't already started a business, just get going with it. There's no better time to start one than now. It doesn't get any easier as you get older, I can assure you of that. And I'll talk a bit about my experiences along the way, various projects I've done, companies I've started, and things I've learned along the way that really stuck with me. So, this is my first computer. This was my school in England, and we were very fortunate to have been given a computer by a local business. This was an Elliott 803B, I think. Consumed 1.5 kilowatts of power. It consumed paper tape, the teleprinter on the left there where you wrote your program. And there is one just like it now in the museum, the National Museum of Computing in England, at Bletchley Park. If you go there, you can actually ask them to run some of the software that I wrote when I was 11 years old. They still have it there, and it still runs. So. And if you do go to England, do go to Bletchley Park and do go to the Museum of Computing. It's fascinating, and you can see the Colossus computer as well, which was responsible for cracking German codes in the war. After school, I went to Cambridge. I spent a lot of time rowing and a little bit of time studying, and came away with a master's degree in mathematics and computer science. After Cambridge, I worked for a year for a company down in Guildford, doing one of the best projects was a fault-tolerant computer for spacecraft that was for the European Space Agency. But after a year of that, I left and started a company with some friends, and there were 5 of us who started this company. And we worked out of a friend's house, and we started a product called AutoRoute, which was the first computerized route planning and mapping software. And it was for consumers, but it was £130, so a couple of $100. Pretty expensive, but it sold really well. And we grew very rapidly and created a professional product soon after that, AutoRoute Plus. Interestingly, as soon as we launched this consumer product, we had all these businesses coming to us, and they all wanted us to do consultancy and build a project just for them. And I remember one meeting with Northwest Water, and they wanted us to create this package that was specifically for their kind of routing with the water trucks, and somebody else had some trucks with a front and a back end, and they would drop part of it and do half a route, and then the other half sort of figure-of-8 routing, and they all came to us with these requirements. And all wanted to, consult, spend money with us. And we listened to them all, and we said no to all of them. And we took all the ideas, and we took the 80% that everybody wanted, and we put it into a professional product. And then we sold that for much more money than the consumer product. It was the same map, it was the same routing algorithm inside it. We essentially sold the same things to people. In fact, we actually shipped most of the code for the professional one and the consumer one and just turned it off in the menus. And so that was one lesson. If you can sell the same thing to 2 different people at vastly differing prices, you can make far more money than having to build a product for everybody. And so then we created thematic mapping products as well for marketing, analysis, territory planning. We expanded across Europe and opened an office in Paris. And so I got to go to Paris frequently, which was great. And had distributors around the rest of Europe. And then we signed up a distributor in America, and we couldn't call it AutoRoute over here because nobody here can say AutoRoute, they all say route. So we called it AutoMap over here. And AutoMap Road Atlas became the #1 CD-ROM product in the market over here. And it was all going swimmingly well until our distributor here wasn't really paying his bills. And so I came out to investigate and help him because he was growing so rapidly he couldn't keep up and wasn't able to pay our royalties for some mysterious reason despite the cash flowing in. And discovered that the guy was actually cheating us out of hundreds of thousands of dollars and bought a house and bought a car using our money. And so we had to shut him down. And so at that point I had to decide, in the space of about a week, that I was prepared to uproot myself, move to America, set up a subsidiary over here, get the product back in the market, keep it going. Because we were going to litigate. We took him to court, we got an injunction. Nobody was going to touch our product while we were going through that whole litigation process. The only way to do it was to do it ourselves. So I had to make that decision, and I enjoy starting stuff, so I moved here and could go anywhere in America. I chose Seattle area because I didn't want to pay state income tax. And, so that was Alaska, Florida, or Washington State, I think, pretty much. Yeah, okay, and I wanted a direct flight from London, and so yeah, I ended up here, and we knew some people here, so, got the product back in the market within a couple of months, and kept it going, and then a few years later sold that company to Microsoft. I thought I'd last about 3 months at Microsoft, being an entrepreneur type, and I enjoy running my own business, but actually Microsoft was great. When people ask me, I say, yeah, I was at Microsoft for 10 years, 8 happy ones. First 8 years, it was great. I was able to start new projects, there was headcount, people pretty much left me alone, and I got to do my own thing. I got to start entirely new products that didn't exist before. So one of those, we had the auto groups and auto map style products, the consumer one. I got to start MapPoint, which was an Office family member. Yeah, and that went great. And then after a few years, I decided I didn't want to be the mapping geek for the rest of my life, and I started a different business within Microsoft, a movie maker, which I pitched to the Windows team. It was a feature of Windows, and the Windows team said no. And so I'd already pitched it to Bill Gates, who had said yes. So I found another home for it, created it, and it became part of Windows, despite them originally saying no. Actually, MSN Maps was another feature that I pioneered, and MSN actually said no to that as well. So one of the problems of being an entrepreneur as a big company is that people tend to say no to good ideas, and if you've got the freedom to go do them, it's great. But if you don't, then you leave. And eventually, I left. And did a startup with a friend that's down in the bottom right, which was an innovative product that records the radio, and it finds every song playing on the radio, and it gives you a chart of what's new, what's going up in play count this week versus last week. It helps you discover new songs. My friend Bill and I, who started this together, we thought this was great. Both of us love finding new music. And unfortunately, the big mistake we made was we extrapolated our experience to everybody else. And it turns out most people, after they leave college, they don't really care about finding new music. They don't try anything new. They listen to whatever they listened to in college for the rest of their life, which is really sad. There was a piece on NPR about the time we were doing this, all about this. You start a sushi restaurant in the Midwest, and everybody in there is 20-year-olds. You don't get 40, 50-year-olds coming in to that looking for new experiences. But Bill and myself, we like finding new music. The other real eye-opener there was that there isn't much new music on the radio in America. There's not much variety. We would find these local stations, and their playlist was incredibly short. They would play the same song 6 times in a day. They would play the same song like 20 minutes apart. It's just terribly repetitious. And apart from C89.5 and KEXP, those are the only 2 here that play any decent variety of music. After that, I did a stint at myfamily.com, set up a whole new dev team for them in Bellevue, and which was, myfamily.com had the original social network. They were there, 18 years before Facebook or whatever, sharing photos and stories with family, and they could have been Facebook, but by then it was too late. We rewrote the whole app. It was a really old code base. They'd abandoned it basically because they were really working on Ancestry.com at that point in time. Rebuilt it, rebuilt the dev team, but yeah, too little, too late. Lost opportunity. And yeah, a bit of a fraud being here talking about entrepreneurship. I currently have a job. I'm working for Charles Simone in Bellevue, which is intentional software. I'm starting up 2 dev teams there. It's like a startup. I get a lot of say in what goes on there and starting new things. And it's kind of interesting. Charles is very well connected in the local community, having chief architect on Word and Excel, so he knows everybody. We get Bills and Pauls dropping by the office to say hello from time to time. I get to meet them, which is good. Okay, being an entrepreneur, what's it like? It's great. Thoroughly recommend it. You will learn far more as an entrepreneur than you will by going to work for any large company. You get to do everything. You get to try everything. It can be kind of lonely, and you can kind of be flying against the tide if you like, but thoroughly recommend it. There is never a better time to start than now. Start while you can. This is my first car. At the time I started my first company, I could put all of my belongings in the back of my first car. I owned my first car. I had no obligation to anybody other than paying some rent. I was free to spend as much time on the company and get it going. And now it's much harder. Once you get older, you've got a family, you've got, you know, all those other obligations. It's much harder. So don't wait to start a company. Do it now. What should you do? What should your company do? There's two things you can really do. You can either remove a pain point for somebody, or you can improve something that's already quite good. People tend to pay more for taking pain away than they do for getting some improved, you know, better entertainment experience or whatever. So if you can find a pain point that somebody's currently experiencing, can you solve it for them? I'd also encourage you, please, 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 go do something worthwhile. There's way too many startups writing games for iPhones and other meaningless stuff. And many years ago, scientists wanted to be in the space program and take people to Mars and stuff, and now they want to write iPhone games, and I think that's really sad. Do something that improves society, good for the planet. That's kind of how I choose things that I want to work on. This was an interesting quote. I couldn't find it on the internet, but I was in a meeting with Bill Ziff, who was the founder of Ziff Davis, PC Magazine, and a lot of very successful magazines back in the 80s. And he said, he came up with this quote, I think I've got right, but I can't check it. God creates markets, we just take share. A lot of people say, hey, I'm going to go and create this whole new market. I've got this great idea, it's going to be a whole new market that doesn't exist. Well, sorry, it probably does exist. All you're really doing is taking share from somewhere else. You're just transferring people who watch TV to people who play games here. It's an entertainment market. Most of what you do is replacing something that already exists. So don't claim it's a new market. Understand what you're replacing and show how what you're going to do is better than what already exists. How do you get in at the right time? I really like this book. I don't have many books I recommend, but Andy Grove, Only the Paranoid Survive. I thought it was a really good book, and it talked about these strategic inflection points. You can be going along this nice smooth curve, but at some point, the second derivative changes direction, and the curve starts moving the other way, and you need to be there. Sometimes it's gradual, and sometimes it's rapid. You need to be there and get in at the right time when something's changing. And we've seen this with sort of platform transitions, books to CD-ROM to internet to mobile. Each time there's one of those shifts, people who get in there and can take away share from the publishers of the books. The internet took away share from the CD-ROM market, and mobile's taking share from internet. You've got to be prepared to, well, for an entrepreneur, it's a great time to get in and start that. For a big company, it's really tough. It's so hard for them to make that change. That's where the entrepreneur can run rings around the big company. For Microsoft to come out with a complete rewrite of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint for tablet computers that really, really takes advantage of the tablet and touch and multi-touch and everything would be really, really hard. And it, probably be priced less, than it would take share from themselves. So, they're reluctant to do that. But you've got to. Big company needs to do that to survive, but since they don't, it's a great opportunity to get in. Some of the changes are more gradual. Mobile bandwidth crept up and up and up, and at some point, hey, you can watch video on that. At some point, people were quite happy downloading lots of apps. Touch screens, at some point, they became great. Before that, they were kind of laggy and not very responsive, and Microsoft tried many years to make touch screens popular, but they were probably too early. I think speech recognition is on the cusp. It's getting there. It's only been 63 years since people started natural language processing research, and finally making some progress there. And then also consumer behavior. I kind of see this, in the younger generation. I watch my daughter. Whoa, Facebook. Whoa, Instagram. Whoa, next shiny thing, Snapchat. Being there for those, the shifts in that, especially in younger generation who are more likely to change. So, having decided what you're going to make and whose share you're going to take, one thing we always used to say was write the back of the box first. Now this is back in the days when we had boxes. But really, it's can you express what you're trying to convey to the person you're trying to sell to in a space that big? That's something that they can pick up in a retail store and read and put down and decide that, yes, I want to buy this. People don't have time to do lots of research now. Can you really express what you're trying to sell succinctly is really what I'm trying to say there. And you know, before you start the project, write the back of the box, if you like, and then everybody on the team knows, hey, we're trying to make it do this. This is what it's meant to do. These are the key features that we're trying to sell. Have at least one of them unique. If everything on the back of your box is the same as everything on the back of that box, then, you know, that's going to be a tough sell. Have one thing that you do better than anybody else. Unique selling point. This is the, as far as I know, this is probably the only black sand beach with icebergs on it in the world, from Iceland. Probably all know this, you know. I see lots of people who don't seem to get this, that they come out with a whole list of features. People send me these newsletters. Hey, our website's just upgraded, we've added 5 new features. It's like, I don't buy features, I don't care about features, I care about benefits. I don't care that you've built a boat with wheels on it, I care about the fact that you can take me to go see the glacial lagoon or whatever. So you get me there quicker and see things I couldn't see before. Competitive research, in some ways, the internet's made it easier, in some ways it's made it harder. You can now go out and find everything and you can see everything and try their product and really understand what your competitors are doing. But I think it's also, in some ways, it's killing innovation. Because there's always someone at the back of the room who's got their laptop and goes, oh, no, somebody's already done that before, we can't possibly do that. It says here on this website. Well, you can. You can still be better. You can still create some unique combination of value that nobody else has, and you can market it better. So, yes, do your research, but don't kill everything before you've tried it. Consumer research. So, ask everyone. Of course, all your geek friends will tell you it's a great idea. So go ask all your non-geek friends what they really think of it. I have a bunch of non-geek friends at the barn where we ride horses, and I always ask them what they think of my crazy ideas. And just listen to what they say. Don't be tempted to try and excuse it. Go, oh, well, yeah, if you do it this way, then it works much better or whatever. No, just listen to what they say, write it down, and take it as feedback. At Microsoft, we did used to do a lot of research, focus groups. And we would go out and we would survey people about movie makeup. And we would split people up into 2 groups. People who had done some editing before, and people who had never done any video editing before. And it was interesting. The people who had never done it before came up with all of the best ideas. They were like, oh, I wish you could do a thing where I could just put my videotape in and give you a song, and it would just edit the 2 things together and give me the finished video. People with experience, you'd actually, you know, say, well, what do you think of this idea? They would all go, nah, that would never work. That would be impossible. Nobody would ever, you know, you can't do that. Video editing programs can't do that. They were so negative about all the things it couldn't do. And they never came up with any good ideas, really. So you need to understand who you're talking to, and you need both of those kind of inputs. And actually, you know, Movie Maker we did. We made a feature working with Microsoft Research in China where you could give it a song, give it a video, and it would find the best bits of your video and edit them and put them with the song. How did it find the best bits of video? You've got a video that some consumer shot and it's all bouncing around, and, you know, as people do, they walk with their cameras, they zoom in and out, and all the things you should never do. You should treat your video camera like it's a still camera and shoot clips. This software that I work with Microsoft China Research on, it actually did something not obvious. It looked at the MPEG-2 motion vectors in your video, and it could tell what your camera was doing. It was sort of reverse engineering the motion of the scene, the sort of gross motion of the scene, to figure out what your camera was doing. And from that, you look for the places where the person was holding the camera the most steady. Because guess what? When somebody's filming kids running around at school, sitting on Santa's knee or whatever, when their kid sat on Santa's knee, they hold that camera way more steady than when everybody else's kid is. And just by picking up this hidden signal in the video, we were able to actually pick the best bits out of the video automatically. We still allowed people to edit it after that, but it did a pretty good job. So we created what those novice people said they wanted, and the experienced people said was impossible. I still believe in the no unhappy customers phrase. I know one of my friends just did a blog post about how this was completely wrong. That he said no unhappy consumers, and that you shouldn't listen to consumers because you're going to come up with ideas. You know, they would all have said the iPad was a dumb idea because it didn't have a keyboard and it didn't do that. Well, I think the original reason for this saying no unhappy customers was really customers. It wasn't consumers. It was people you've got a business relationship with, people buying stuff from you. And it doesn't mean that you're going to do every feature for everybody, but it does mean that you don't want somebody bad-mouthing you. You don't. You know, we would always give people their money back. 130 quid, here you go, have your money back. We'd rather you were happy, even though we know you've cheated, we know you've kept a copy on your hard drive, we know you're lying through your teeth, but you know, we want you to be happy. Because back in those days, we used to say a happy customer tells 2 other people and an unhappy one will tell 10 other people. And that was before the internet, that was before the web. Nowadays, I think it's more like, you know, a happy one might tell 10 Facebook friends, but an unhappy one's going to go on Reddit and everywhere else and slag you off in front of hundreds of thousands of people. So I still, you know, believe in the Nordstrom customer service model that you send everybody away happy, even if they're cheating you. Another rule of thumb that we used to have back in the days of direct mail, when we would send out mailers to people, was that if somebody bought our upgrade this year, they were about twice as likely to buy it again next year. If they didn't buy our upgrade this year, they were half as likely to buy it again next year. There's this sort of exponential compounding of if you get people hooked and give them something good every year at a good price, that they would keep coming back. And so we would price our upgrades really quite cheaply in order to try and get most people to upgrade every year. And yeah, I tried pitching this at Microsoft, the Windows division, said, hey, this is what we should do. We should make an upgrade of Windows that's an affordable price that everybody can actually install, that runs on their hardware, but no. They wanted to keep the price up there and make it incompatible with last year's hardware. So, whereas Apple, yeah, they do that. 30 bucks, 20 bucks, whatever it is for your Lion upgrade. Yeah. Mountain Lion or whatever. The one that doesn't work is one of the contracts. So, in my time, I have negotiated and written many, many contracts. I know way more about legal stuff than I ever thought I would do when I did my computer science degree at Cambridge. I would actually often draft the contract and give it to the lawyer to tidy up rather than tell them what I wanted and wait for them to get it right. Once you've seen enough of them, you kind of know what to put in there. But I see some people approach contracts as, you know, I'm going to put down all of the things we're going to do together. We're going to do this press release together, and we're going to work on this project, and this project's going to last from here to here. They try and spell out all of the happy stuff that's going to happen as we work together on this deal. But no, you can't do that. There's too much to spell out there, and things will change. Contracts are for when things go wrong. Contracts are for this relationship has failed, broken down. And it's put down all the things in there that, you know, we need to do to back out of this to enforce it. It's prenuptial agreement. It doesn't tell you anything about what's going to happen while you're married. I've never seen one, but I imagine. It doesn't tell you what's happening while you're married. It's what happens when you get divorced. It's all about the failure situation. I think approaching contracts like that and understanding that your job is to make sure that every possible failure mode is in there. And, you know, some of the success. But hey, things are going well, we can change the contract, we can put an amendment in there, an addendum, whatever. It's easy to renegotiate when things are going well. Corporate structure. In an ideal world, there would be some simple formula, money invested plus time invested, some suitable ratio between time and money, and that determines your percentage of the company. Unfortunately, it's very hard to fix that formula at the start. Things change over time. Somebody who said they were going to spend their entire life working with you decides after a year to go off and do something else. Or they get a full-time job and now they're only part-time on your project, and it's like, well, hang on, I just gave you half the company, that's not going to work. So there are ways to sort of get around that, and, but personal feeling is that you really want people who are equally committed with you. They're in, pound for pound, time for time with what you're doing, and that you're equal. It's much easier to work late alongside somebody when you're both, you know, getting the same out of it at the end of the day. Very hard to achieve, but hey, best. Incidentally, my first company, we started it with our own money. We grew it organically. We never took any funding. We actually did have some investment bankers in at one point. We bought one of the other founders out because he wanted to go off and do something else. And we invited, Barclays Capital came in, and they presented to us, and they said they wanted us to give them security on our houses, and they wanted to take 20% of the company, and they would give us this much money, and they wanted this much interest. And we just showed them the door. It's like, get lost, this business is doing quite well, thank you very much already. All we want to do is borrow some money. And we sent them away. And we went to, we switched bank to NatWest, who gave us an unsecured line of credit, which we never actually drew down. The cash flow was sufficient. We bought the other partner out from cash flow. Business plan. Everybody needs a business plan, don't they? I've seen a lot of these. I've seen a lot of these at Microsoft, where we have these 3-year plans. Every 3-year plan I saw looked just like this. Year 1, lose some money. Year 2, lose more money and grow like crazy. And year 3, profit. Bingo. Exponential growth curve. It's all going to take off. Every one I've seen looks like that on paper. I've never seen one like that in practice. You're far more likely to fail slowly, fail quickly, sweat for 5 years, and finally creep into profit. On occasion you get lucky. Well, maybe not lucky. We'll see. Patents. So yeah, I have my little stack of patent cubes at home. Microsoft gives you a cube every time you file a patent. I stayed until I completed my pyramid, so they would stack nicely on my desk. It would have, you know, would have taken another 8 or whatever to get to the next level, so I had to leave. I'm kind of cynical about patents. When I started my first company, it wasn't really an option. Back in the UK, software patents, you didn't do them. And so, you know, we didn't have patents on all of the auto-route, route planning, mapping technology. Patents, really, I see them as more like a form of currency that big companies use. They trade them, they create patent pools, and then they use those pools to block everybody else from innovating and small companies from coming in, which, you know, it's kind of sad. But one thing as a, you know, as a startup, are you going to patent something? Are you going to spend the money to patent this idea? It's a lot of money, it's a lot of time to do it, and you know, your company might not even make it. You don't know yet. Do you want to spend all that time and money doing it? If it's a really, really, really key core invention, then yeah, do it. But a lot of things, it's not worth it. But what you don't want to happen is for somebody else to patent the thing that you're doing, and then come along and go, hey, I'm going to sue you because, you know, we invented that. We have a patent on it. Look, see here. So what I've done with some of the work I've been doing recently in my spare time on this home automation system that I'll talk about if I have time at the end, I've actually been disclosing as much as possible. I blog about it. I tell people all about the features and what it does. Because then there's all this prior art out there. And then somebody big can't come along and go, hey, we patented that. And I go, well, sorry, I invented it years before. And actually, over the past few years, I've been involved in several lawsuits between the car navigation companies. They've all been suing each other because they've all filed all these patents in the early 90s for car navigation. Finding places on a map and finding places near your route and stuff like this. Stuff that we did in 1988. And luckily I still have all these boxes of auto route from 1988 and brochures and, you know, stuff that that the wife kept telling me to throw out. This stuff in the basement has saved these major corporations millions of dollars. There's several patents have now been struck down as a result of all this prior art that we had from back then. So keep good records, publish, make sure you don't get locked out of something that you invented. Decision making. This is another thing I've kind of learned along the way. There are only 5 ways to make a decision. And it's really important to be clear in any situation, meeting, dealings with another team, dealings with another company, what mode you're in. The ways of making a decision are you decide, I decide, you decide with my input, I decide with your input, or there's this thing called consensus, which allegedly works in Japan. But what really happens in Japan is actually everybody defers based on seniority to the most senior person, and it looks like consensus to us from the West, but you know, it's more complicated, as if everything in Japan is more complicated. In my experience. That's the best advice somebody gave me when I was traveling to Japan a lot, was after you've been there 2 weeks, write down everything you understand about Japanese culture. Because you're understanding for the first 2 weeks, we go, oh, up like this. You'll be learning, oh, I'm learning so much about the culture. I understand so much. It's going up and up and up. And then after 2 weeks, you will start to realize that everything you learned in the first 2 weeks was wrong. It's more complicated than that. This is more complicated. And you'll go down. 2 years later, you'll finally get back up to the point you were after 2 weeks. So write down after 2 weeks what you understand about Japanese culture.
Does the same go for entrepreneurship?
No, it's more of a continually growing. It's up and up and up. Yes. So, you know, just be clear. It creates a lot of friction when people think that they have a say in a decision and they don't. It's just giving input. You know, you, as the boss of your little company, you're deciding, not them, or you've delegated. You've said, yeah, hey, you know, we're partners. You decide marketing stuff, I decide technical stuff, but you take my input and I take your input. But let's be clear, up front, how that's going to work. But whatever happens, the decision always beats indecision. You know, blue logo, green logo. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you made a decision, you move forward. I hate meetings where people come in and discuss for an hour and don't reach a conclusion and decide. The end conclusion is, let's have another meeting. It's like, no. Pick one. It doesn't really matter in the long run. What matters more is that we move forward. Always moving forward. Never delaying. Which brings me to this topic. So, of the many courses I've done over my life, I think there's only about one that has ever changed the way I actually do anything. I've actually stuck. And that's this guy called David Allen. And I actually have 4 copies of his book here to give away. I'm not sure how we're going to raffle them off or whatever. But David Allen came in and gave a course once, and it actually changed the way I think. So he's got this process. How many people have heard of David Allen before? A few? Well, okay. I'll give you my quick summary. You can correct me if you know better. But how do you deal with your inbox? Your inbox, your stuff you need to get done just piles up. And he says, you know, there's basically 5 things you can do, and you should just work through, top down, look at each item and do one of these 5 things. And the 5 things you can do, he actually has 4 Ds, and then he has this reference thing, but I like to have 5 Ds myself. It's easier. So delete it. Most of the stuff in your inbox should just be deleted right away. Don't think, hey, I might need this again sometime. It's probably on the internet. You can find it if you need it. Just delete it. Get it over with. Delegate it as a manager. That's what you should be doing as far as possible. Don't do it. Give it to somebody else. Do it. David has this 2-minute rule, which some people have a 5-minute rule or whatever. It doesn't matter how many minutes, but it's a rule that says, look, if this is really a short thing to do, I should just do it now. Because otherwise I'm condemning myself to come back and look at it again. And I'll open that email again and go, oh yes, I should do something about this. Oh yes, I should. You've spent more than 2 minutes by the time you read that email 3 times trying to decide what you should do with it. Just do it. Get it out of the way. That's, I think, one of the most valuable of those rules. And then if you can't do it right away and you're not deleted it, then defer it. Put it on your calendar, do it at a specific time, or in whatever to-do list manager you use, put it a specific place. We'll get onto place in a second. Or it's reference material. If it's not actionable and you want to keep it, just shove it in some reference folder somewhere. Don't create folders and folders and folders, just rely on search. His other big sort of tenet of his methodology, if you like, is that people put down things that are too big. They put write book down in their to-do list. Oh, I need to write a book. Pull up your to-do list. Oh, write a book. Oh, well, that's a big task. I can't possibly start that. I've only got 10 minutes. Okay, close that one. What's next? Tomorrow. Oh, write book. You know, you keep looking at it and going, I can't possibly make progress on that. It's way too big. his thing is you need to break it down. What's your next action item? Your next action item on write book might be, oh, go do some research and other books in this field. Oh, that's still too big. Go buy this book from Amazon. Oh, wow, I can do that. I can do that right now. Done. I've moved on. I've progressed that task. So, but don't try and spell out everything you need to do. Don't go, oh, I'm going to create a project plan for a write book. I'm going to map out the whole thing. And I'll get onto that in a minute when I talk about Agile. The other thing is, how do you organize your task list? He talks about organizing it by the context. And in the old days, context was all about where you were. Oh, I'm at my desk, I'm at home. But these days, with mobile computing, those contexts are kind of becoming meaningless. I can make progress on my smartphone or laptop, wherever I am. And context now is more about state of mind. It's at the end of the day. I can't do the same things at the end of the day that I can do. I can do everything at the beginning of the day, but I can't do everything at the end of the day. But there's a bunch of stuff that I could make progress on at the end of the day when I'm tired, and I'll just tag it with that. And but then some of it still is at the meeting, at a specific person, at a particular place that you're going to have to make progress on this, at shopping or whatever. Agile. So agile software development has many flavors. There's people who have the one true flavor and people who try and make it like waterfall and everything in between. But I think there's some key parts of Agile that I like to apply to everything. I think it's a good way of thinking about stuff. So Agile is kind of, don't overplan. We're not going to spec the whole project out from end to end, every single feature, waterfall style before we even start. Agile is about having this backlog, having this place where you put all the things, as you think of them, you add them to the backlog. It's about keeping that backlog in priority order, and so knowing what the next set of things we're going to want to work on are. Business requirements will change, new stuff will come in as you're working. And the other key thing is that there's this concept of a sprint, that we're going to take a chunk off our backlog, we're going to work on that, we're going to focus on that and do that to the exclusion of anything else. We're not going to let other stuff come in while we're working on this set of stuff, whether that's a 2-week sprint, a 3-week sprint, or longer. And then you do that, and then you adjust and look at your backlog and see what's next. And during that 2 weeks, other stuff comes in, but you don't deal with it. You don't change what you're doing and mess yourself up. You put it lower down. I liken it a bit to sailing. It's a bit like sailing way. You want to sail from here to that way over there, and you pick your first point you're going to sail towards, and you sail towards it. You're tacking for one sprint. And when you get to that point, you tack and go the other way. If you tack too often, if people keep coming in with new business requirements and changing what you're doing, and the whole team stops doing this and starts doing that, you're like a sailing boat that's dead in the water. If you keep tacking, you don't actually make any progress. You need to, you're sailing against the wind. You need to go for a certain period of time, because every time you turn, you lose momentum. Goals. Another thing I think is really important is that you should have clear goals. Everybody should have clear goals, and you should repeat them all the time. Whether it's your goal, I'm working with you on some project, what are our goals? I've never seen anybody repeat them too often. Posting them on the beginning of every slide. I think I had goals at the beginning of the slide deck. Goals for tonight. Put them at the beginning of every slide deck. What are our goals for this meeting? What do we want to accomplish? What's your goals with people you're working with, managing, projects? Know your limits. Well, actually I think there's only one limit. I think the only limit really is time. Time is the only immutable thing that we have a fixed supply of and can't create any more of. Personally, I think you can learn anything. You're all smart people. If you want to learn how to write contracts and enough legal stuff to be able to argue with a lawyer about what should be in the contract, you can do that. If you want to learn how to market stuff, how to design stuff, design can get a bit creative, maybe not design. Nearly everything you can learn, and getting into the mindset where you say to yourself, hey, yes, it's hard, I can, there's some new software, whatever, I'll go learn it, and make the time and just keep learning, never stop learning. And do you go to networking events? Yeah, but not too many. Networking events are great, you get to meet people, but it's more important you're talking to your customers and getting your product out the door. So I go to a limited set. The other thing I think is key is practice. You only get good at something when you practice, and you do it over and over and over again. So whether it's writing, just blog, comment on other people's blogs, go on question and answer sites, just write all the time, and you get better and better at it. It gets quicker and easier. I have a blog, first night writing the blog, it took forever. But now I can write blog entries in 10 minutes. It just gets easier the more you do. And practice different styles, marketing copy, PR copy, product demonstrating. I used to love it. We would go to trade shows and I would spend 8 hours non-stop talking to customers, showing them the product over and over again, and just get used to what questions they ask and how you explain to them what your product does. You just get better and better and better at that over time. That's a bit harder these days. I mean, you can go on forums and maybe explain your product there, but you don't get that same feedback that we used to get at trade shows, talking one-on-one with somebody. It made our marketing better. We were better able to explain what we did because of that time we'd spent talking to them. Practice speaking. That's what I'm doing tonight. Improving my speaking, hopefully. You might need to take pictures or video for your business. Well, get good at that too, and then you can, you need a picture on a Friday night of something, you can just go and shoot it yourself. That's one of my personal hobbies is photography, and I'll talk about that in a second. And practice coding, your software, just code all the time. Photography, I will drag my camera out and the wife bakes the cake and practice on my aperture settings. I'll drag it out whenever I'll take it with me wherever I'm going, and one day, you'll get that clear sky over Seattle, twice a year maybe, and you get that amazing vista with the mountains behind. You get a great sunset, you play with the exposures, learning all the time, trying stuff, and then one day you get lucky. 20 years of living in Rock Meadow, I've seen the bobcats twice. The second time I was able to grab my camera and get several shots of the bobcat. Very elusive creatures, but only because it's not just luck. You're lucky because you practiced and because you're ready to get the camera out, get the right setting and get that picture. And that's the same in business. Yes, there's an element of luck. We were very lucky with Nextbase. We were there at the right time, with the right product, and it all worked out. But, there's a lot of practice before that. Practice coding. Go contribute. Even if you've not got a project going now, go contribute to some open source project. Go answer questions on Stack Overflow. Go follow what the really good people on Stack Overflow say as their answers to other people's questions. Go learn all the time, practice. Practice writing. Go to blogs. Go and have a blog. Don't just blog for the sake of it, but find something useful that you're passionate about and write about it. Practice writing. Go do it today. Don't delay. Questions?
Wow.